Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If it's your first time joining, thank you. If you're a previous subscriber or a new subscriber, welcome back. In my last video, I talked about the new project I'll be starting. I went over the fabrics that I'm using, and today we are going to go over your cutting instructions and the supplies that you're going to need. So hopefully you have all gone to Samelia's mom and printed out your pattern. And again, it is called Fresh Diamonds. And you use yardage and you use 2 charm packs. And again, the charm packs that I am using are from Island Boutique. They are called Sunny Side Up. And you can no longer get these. I have gone to the islandboutique.com website. There is some yardage of some of it, but I believe all of the charm packs are sold out. I purchased mine on clearance from Missouri Star Quilt Company over a year ago. I've had them in my inventory, and I never had used them. I kept on putting my what do you call them? My fat quarters and my other, my fat quarters and my fat quarter bundles aside, and I have a jelly roll and a mini jelly roll. So I had all those in a little bin up on my shelf, and I kept forgetting that I had them. So after completing the baby quilt, I decided that I did not want to do a machine embroidery project because that one was a lot of machine embroidery. So we're going to go ahead and do this pattern. And like I said in the previous video, I do have permission from Anarina, who is the designer of this quilt. This is her pattern, and I mentioned to please go to her website to print out the pattern. And I showed pictures of it in that last video, the color pictures of what these look like. So please check out that video. Okay, so sorry, I'm a little out of breath right now. I just finished cleaning up the kitchen after dinner, so I'm a little out of breath. Okay, so what you're going to need for this particular pattern is 2 charm packs or 78 5x5 charms. Her pattern, she used Bliss by Moda. I do not know if that particular charm pack is still made, so you would have to research that. So you're going to use 2 charm packs. You're going to use 78 blocks out of those charm packs. I have these were 40 pieces to each one of these charm packs, so I have plenty. You are going to need 1.5 yards or 1.5 yards of a solid fabric. For my solid fabric, I am using this light blue, and I know it's a little hard to see here on my light blue cutting mat, but I am using a light blue solid. Then you are going to need 3 yards of coordinated fabric for the backing. And I have this darker blue, and it goes really well with the blues that are the shades of blues that are in the blocks or in the charm packs. So these are the colors I have selected, and you can see in the charm packs as well, there's some yellow that I could have incorporated some yellow into the backing as well, and I still may do that because this particular piece of fabric is 2 yards and 4 inches. So you're going to need 3 yards. What I may do is a pieced backing. When we get to that, I will show you how I'm going to do that. When I haven't quite decided yet what I'm going to do. Then you're going to use a 1/2 yard coordinating fabric for the binding. And I believe I'm going to use the light blue. If I haven't, I'm sure I'll have enough after I cut my strips here. Then you are going to need a 60 square inch of batting. So 60 by 60, because our quilt is 50 inches by 54. So the 60 inch that she mentions in the instructions, your materials required, that gives you enough of your batting on the edges for when you're doing your quilting, whether you long arm quilt it. I will be machine embroidery, edge to edge design quilting it. And I really liked that she just used, if I remember correctly, she just used a stipple design to do the quilting, if I remember correctly. Okay, so of course you're going to use a neutral thread for piecing. I think I may use a light blue or just white. Okay, and then you're going to need a ruler, a lead pencil, or a water-soluble pen. I have water-soluble pen here, but she does request that you use a pencil. And when we get to that part, I will show you why a pencil is better. I will be using, you can see that this is a really fine, hopefully you guys can see that. So it's a really fine lead, and that's going to give me a nice, crisp, sharp, narrow, thin line. Okay, and I will explain why when we get to that step. So like I said, a ruler, cutting mat, your rotary cutter, and your quilting ruler. I am using my, this is a 24 inch by 6 inch ruler. I have found that this has been the best quilting ruler I have ever bought. It really is a great ruler for cutting the width of the fabric. Then you're going to need an iron, an ironing board, or a wool pressing mat. And then your general sewing supplies, your sewing machine, scissors, things like that. Okay. So I mentioned that she used Bliss, and it does say here that Bliss is no longer available, but Fat Quarter Shop has hundreds of beautiful charm packs available, or wherever you choose to purchase your charm packs from. Like I said, I did get mine on clearance from Missouri Star Quilt Company. Okay, so our next step is going to be in cutting. And your first cutting instructions is you are going to get your solid fabric and you're going to cut your strips. And out of these strips, you are going to subcut your 5-inch squares that you will need for the backing of your quilt. So I have already started them here, and you're going to cut 9 5-inch strips the width of your fabric. And you can see those here. I have got 4 cut so far, and I'm going to set these aside, and I'm going to, let me stand up here. I have my fabric here, and hopefully we got this all, I don't think we're all in frame, but it will give you, you can see that I have my edge here and this edge here. So we're not too far off frame, but I am going to line this up with my cutting line. Hopefully I'm not getting my big head in the frame here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me pull this back over just a little. And you're going to do 5-inch strips, and so from your 1 inch to your 5 inch, you're just going to line up on your edge, and come on, make sure we're all lined up well. And I like getting my, when you're cutting, some people will use this line, so you can see that. Let's see, I'll put it here on the back so you can see that a little better. Some people will use the solid line because it is easier to line it up on the edge of your fabric, but you're going to be cutting 5 inches, so you're going to be using your dashed line. And what I like to do is I like putting the line right on my fabric. I don't put it on the edge of my fabric like this side of it, I put that line right on the fabric. And that just lets me know that I get that exact 5 inches that I need. Okay. So, excuse me if I'm getting my head in here. Okay. And I am using my 60mm cutter. This is my Cricut cutter. I purchased this on sale, I believe, at Joann's before they decided to go out of business. It was on sale. No, I'm sorry, I am wrong. I purchased this from Amazon. I will have that link down below. Okay, so there is a 5-inch strip. Cut the width of the fabric. I am going to pause and I'm going to cut the remaining 4 pieces that I need, and I will be right back. Okay, so I have all of our strips cut. Now what you want to do is you want to cut 5-inch squares from your strips. She also does say in the instructions that with your coordinating fabric, your binding fabric, to cut into 2.5-inch strips. And I usually cut my binding last. So we're going to wait for that. Give me just a moment. I'm going to shut my door. Okay, sorry about that. Luna, the quilty kitty, or crafty kitty, left the room, so I shut my door. Okay, my husband is out in the other room watching TV while I'm filming, so I shut the door just so all my talking doesn't interrupt him while he's watching his TV shows. Okay, like I was saying, you're going to do your coordinating fabric and you're going to cut your 2.5-inch strips for your binding. I cut my binding last because sometimes when I'm doing a pattern, I will ad-lib with it and add stuff to it. But for this pattern, I'm not going to do that. We're going to follow her pattern completely. But I'm still going to wait to cut the 2.5-inch strips for the binding. So we're going to wait for that. Okay. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to cut cross-cut your 9 strips into your 5-inch squares. And you want to cut 78 of them. Okay, so what I do is I lay them out and I make sure that I find my widest selvage piece. Salvage. I know many people say it different ways. So we're going to move that aside so you can see everything okay. And I lay it down. And what I like to do is I like to cut 2 at a time. So again, I'm still making sure that I have my widest. You can see there. And that I'm going to trim that off, the selvage. On a solid fabric, the selvage can be hard to see. So I'm going to layer 2 of them. And if you cut accurately, these are going to lay perfectly. Okay, so I have my OmniGrid. I really like the OmniGrid rulers. I purchased mine again off of Amazon. Okay, so what I do is I just lay it on and go to where the selvage is, and I cut just a little bit beyond. I mean, maybe like 1/8 of an inch beyond where the selvage ends. That way I know that I get all of it. And one way to make sure that you do get all of it, just make sure that you can, well, you can not make sure. You can open up your ends, and my selvages are pretty much really the same size on here. On some fabrics, you get that white selvage strip that tells you the maker of the fabric and all that. like the colors and the maker and where it was purchased, things like that. But this one doesn't. So sometimes the solids are hard to find. So you got to really make sure that you look where your salvage is. Salvage. Okay. And that is all I cut off. So it's just beyond, so I know I get it all off. And I just throw them away, especially these ones that got like the little fuzzy on it. Okay. So now I'm going to, what I do is I trim them all off at one time. That way I don't have to flip everything, keep flipping everything around. So I'm going to go ahead and trim the rest of them, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have all the selvages trimmed off the ends. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to start cutting my 5-inch squares. And one little tip that I'd like to share with you guys is if you, let me grab it here. If you start a pattern with one ruler, continue using that ruler. And I'm gonna, we don't need that one, but so this is still an OmniGrid ruler, but I bought it through, it had a Fons and Porter pattern with it when I bought it. And you can see that Fons and Porter, they have their name on there. So what you want to do is when you do start a project, stick with the same ruler. And the reason why that is good is because different rulers may be slightly off. This is a June Taylor ruler, and I believe this might have come with my blue cutting mat that we had on the table when I was subcutting or doing the strips. And rulers can differ a little bit in size. So if I started cutting with this ruler and switched to this ruler, my 5-inch squares may be a little bit off. So it's always good to stick with the same ruler that you start with, okay? I try to mention that now in all of my videos. I did have somebody email me saying that why are my strips all off, or why are my blocks all off? And I couldn't think of anything that maybe they just cut incorrectly. Well, what they were doing is they were using their cutting mat to measure with, not the rulers. So the cutting mat was slightly different than what the ruler was. Even as much as 1/8 of an inch can add up over time while you're cutting. So always make sure that if you're going to cut with the cutting mat, stick with the measurement on the cutting mat. If you're cutting ruler wise, always stick with the measurement on the ruler. So, and what I mean by that is, so of course you're 1 inch. Let me move this up a little so we can see it. So of course you're 1 inch. If you're going to use your cutting mat as your measurement to cut with, always line your fabric with your 1 inch mark and make sure they're straight. And then lay your ruler down and find your 5-inch mark and cut. So then you're going to get accurate cuts because you're sticking with the ruler or the cutting mat measurement, sorry. Now if you are cutting with your ruler, you do not you can put this in any direction on your mat. And let me smooth that out just a little bit there. Okay, so even if my mat is crooked, it doesn't matter because I'm going to use the measurements on the ruler to cut with. And so I'm going to use my 5-inch marks. This is a 6.5-inch ruler. So I'm going to lay it. So see right here, let me put this behind it so you guys can see what I'm talking about. For beginners, if you are not used to using quilting rulers, So this would be your 5-inch mark. This is where you're going to lay here, and then you're going to line up on the 5-inch line and the 5-inch line this way, and then you're going to cut. That way you know you're going to get an accurate cut every time. Other people may do it other ways, but that is how I make my mark. I always line up with this corner so I know I'm getting the 5-inch, and I make sure that my 5-inch line is on the edge of the fabric and this edge of the fabric, because you may, if this one's off, you may think that this one's on, and it might not be accurate. It depends on how accurately you cut your strips. So you want to always make sure that you are lining up correctly. And what looked like I was on here correctly was off down here. So I want to make sure that, because sometimes these wider lines are hard to see the edge of the fabric depending on the colors of fabric that you're using. So, I mean, it is a learning curve for sure using quilting rulers. So I close my rotary cutter, and I'm going to hold and cut. So there are 4 blocks, 4 5-inch squares, because I layered my strips, 2 strips. So I'm going to keep cutting, and this is the way cutting works for me. If you are more experienced, you may have a little bit of a different way to cut. Do the cutting that works for you. Just make sure that you are making sure that your blocks are accurate every time you cut. And you can see I'm kind of offsetting them when I lay them down. That way I can, when I count, I'll count by 4 and then just multiply, and to make sure that I have enough strips. Okay, so on this one, you can see that when I first trimmed up my fabric, when I squared it up, hopefully you guys can see this right here. See where it didn't quite catch that edge of the fabric? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and continue cutting the bottom piece, because those pieces are okay. And sometimes that happens, not a big deal. That is one of the reasons that when you buy your fabric, always make sure that you get at least a 1/4 yard or maybe even a 1/2 yard more. You know, some people say, what am I going to do with all that fabric? Why waste all that fabric? Well, you're not wasting it. You can add that fabric to your stash. So what I'm going to do is, when I was cutting my strips, Luna jumped up on the table and I got this strip off by almost a 1/4 inch at one end. Well, no, not quite a 1/4 inch, but to replace anything here that might be too small, where you can see that frayed edge right there. Let me separate that so you can see it. See that edge where it's frayed? Hopefully you guys can see that okay. So when I was trimming up, again, squaring up my fabric, I didn't quite trim enough off the end, and I missed that. So I'm going to remove that piece, because that can go into my scraps now, but I still have 3 pieces here, so I need to use my other piece here. And I like doing this as soon as possible. And let's cut that piece off. and then I'm going to flip around and I'm going to cut so I know I have the right amount in that particular stack. So we're just going to take one of these and set it aside, because now I have some fabric to fall back on. If I do make a cutting error, I will have it. So I'm going to just add this one to this stack. So now we have 4 stacks of 4. You're going to continue cutting your strips, and once we get those all cut up, I will be right back. Okay, so I kind of got in the groove and forgot to turn the camera back on. So what we're going to do now is, I was talking about cross-cutting our 9 5-inch strips, but that were the width of the fabric, down into 5-inch squares, and that you were going to need 78 of those squares. So I did that, and I got into working, and I completely forgot to turn the camera back on. So our next step, what you're going to do is you're going to take one of your colored squares of your charm pack, and then one of your solid squares, whether you're using the white like she has in her pattern, or like I'm using my light blue. So if you're going to be using a coordinating, yeah, I don't know why that word was so hard for me. A coordinating fabric other than a white fabric of your charm pack. So you're going to take them and you're going to put them together. And she states in her instructions that you're then going to take a ruler and your pencil. And let me show you. So you can do this with a regular ruler. You can do it with a quilting ruler, as long as it goes from point to point. Okay, so you're going to turn it this way, so it's your points are facing you, and then one point is facing up. So you're going to take your ruler and you're going to lay it from one point to the next point, and you're going to draw a line. Okay, now the best way to draw your line is to start in the middle and go out, and then in the middle and come down. And I still didn't get my point correctly, as you can see right, let's move that light. Hopefully you guys can see that right here. I did not get my point right, my line right on the point. So the thing is that you want to get it exactly on the point. And there are some tools to help you do that. So if you're having a hard time with a regular ruler, and this is a yellow one, and it is kind of hard where the lines are on this one. This one's pretty beat up, but sometimes it's hard to get right on that point. So it is better for some people to use a clear ruler. So say you've got your OmniGrid rulers and it's clear, and you are going from point to point, and that lets you see more clearly. Let me move this out of the way. And it's going to let you line up your points a little bit better. So I just need to draw that one a little better, and I'm still not getting it. Okay, so now you can see that I have that point fixed to where it's lined right up with that point. Okay, now as I was saying previously, this is where a fine tip lead or a very sharp pencil will come in handy, because you're going to be able to draw your lines more accurately. So what you're going to do now is you are going to draw that line, but there is also a way that in her instructions you're going to sew your blocks. This is going to be your cut line, okay? So you're going to sew a 1/4 inch from this line, and that's where your sew line is going to be. And you can see that, how I drew those here on this block. So our center line would be our cut line, and the one to the left and the one to the right would be where we sew. And then this would be where you cut. Okay, we'll get to that later, and it'll make a lot more sense when we get to that step. Now, there are some tools that you can use to make these lines a little bit easier. So like I said, your clear ruler, you could use that. Or they make a handy little tool like this. This is called, let me show you here. This is called a quick quarter, and this is the quick quarter tool. The quick quarter 2, sorry. It's a quick triangle square, piecing without cutting or piecing triangles. Okay, so that made no sense. Not really. Without, okay. Quick triangle square, piecing, okay, you're going to piece triangle squares, which are our triangle squares, and you're going to piece them quickly without cutting. So that's this technique that we're using for this. And I hope I'm not confusing you guys. It doesn't need to be. I think I'm making a little more confusing than what it needs to be. But what this tool does is it has this, can you see the end of it? How it's kind of like arrow shaped. So what that means is you can lay that right on your point. Yeah, hopefully you guys can see that. And then you're going to bring it to this point on this side of the, so you're going to line up your point here and your point here. And, or you don't have to do it that way. You can put your, extend your ruler past so you can see your point and your point on this side as well. And then draw your line. Then you can, while it's still there, hold it down. Stay there. Sorry guys. So there to there. And since this is blue, it's kind of like making my previous pencil mark kind of disappear underneath of it. Okay, so there we go. And there we go. So you'll have your center line, and then you can draw another line on each side. And that one is inaccurate because the fabric moved on me. And then on this side. And what that does is it gives you your lines that you're going to sew on. And you can see where I messed up on this one because the fabric, where the fabric moved on me. And okay, so there are pros and cons to this tool. As you can see, the fabric moved on me. You can draw your center line, then draw one line, and then flip it over and draw the other line so the fabric won't move on you as much. But this is actually a pretty time-consuming tool, in my opinion. That could be why they have been sitting in a my scissor storage can that I made. It could be why I haven't used it in years. So basically, I don't use this. So what I have learned that works better for me is I was showing you this triangle ruler earlier, and let me show you. The lines on these rulers are 1/4 inch apart. Each line is 1/4 inch apart. And what I found that worked better for me, and a good thing I found this because I actually just learned this. I was using this one. And what I found is since these were 1/4 inch apart, I was using these edge ones here. So where you can see this dotted line here, what I did is I laid it down. I took that dotted line and I put it point to point. Took my pencil, drew the line, rotated it, did point to point again on that dotted line. drew my line. And this one was giving more stability to hold the fabric down so it wasn't moving. This little one was so narrow that I couldn't put enough pressure. Yeah, well, I probably could have if I tried harder, but it was just frustrating me, and I couldn't. I mean, it doesn't lay and work comfortably in my hand. They may work for you if you have one of these tools. Since I bought this tool probably 5 years ago, I have never seen a person use it. Never. Okay, so like I was showing you here, this ruler gives you more stability when you're holding it down to draw your line, that the fabric didn't move on me. So you can see I have nicer lines there. Hopefully you guys can see those lines right there. My lights are really super bright, so it's shining right through this solid fabric. I have 4 huge LED filming lights in here right now, and it is just shining right through this fabric. Normal lighting does not do that. Wow. Okay, so you can see my lines right there. Maybe, I'm sorry guys. There. Can you see those okay? So I was taking a lot less time drawing 2 lines instead of drawing the 3 that this one has having me do. Whichever way you prefer to make your lines, do what works best for you, but that's what worked best for me. So again, you could use a regular ruler like this. You could use a ruler like this, and maybe if you have a clear ruler, 12-inch ruler, that would work. This did not work for me because I was, the yellow on the blue just was kind of, I couldn't see the points of the fabric well enough. So I'm going to put that one away. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to continue marking all these. I have all of these left to mark. And the reason why I laid them out like this is because I could pick them up easier instead of like this. I'm just restacking them neatly this way. But I'm going to go ahead and continue marking these. And I'm going to end the video here. And on our next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up on sewing all of these together. But what I have also done is to make something a little bit easier when we are piecing, I purchased a, they can be called an infrared seam guide or a sewing machine laser seam guide. And you mount it to your sewing machine and it puts a red line on your fabric to show where you are going to sew. And let me show you here. I think I still have it. Okay, hang on just a second. I got to bring it back up. Sorry, guys. I ended up purchasing one from Walmart because it was only $13. The one on Amazon are $23. And whichever site you guys prefer to buy from, it doesn't really matter. So what I did... Come on. Being so slow. Okay. So this is the one that I purchased, and you can see that there. And it's got a USB cord, and it's got the extending laser here at the end. And this one is a magnetic one, and I'm not going to use the magnet on it. I may actually take the magnet out because my machine, the housing on my machines are plastic. So I'm going to just probably stick it to my machine with a piece of Gorilla Tape and do it that way. So where you attach it is this portion here. This is part has a magnet in the back side of it, and you'll attach it to your machine if you have a metal machine, or You can like use a square of 3M tape or anything like that. And it, you can see there, it has your little laser at this side and your USB and like so. So I went ahead and purchased one of those. And if you've never used one before, definitely check out some videos of it because they really can help you when you're piecing. I've wanted one for a long time, and I've had it in my I've had one in my Amazon wish list for a long time, and the one that I was looking at was actually $60. And I figured, you know what, you just don't need to spend that much money. If an item is rated 4 stars and above, I'm okay with that. So this item was 4.5 stars on Walmart, and you know, I'm a frugal quilter. I like to save money wherever I can. So hopefully, it's supposed to be delivered on Friday according to what my order said. And when I get it on Friday, I will do a short video on unboxing that and how I'm going to attach it to the machine and set that up. And then after that, I will get back to this video so we can start sewing our pieces together. So I'm going to go ahead and end this one here. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It is going to help you find my videos sooner. Hit that like button. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, and you'll my videos will be shared more with people who might not see them otherwise. So definitely please hit that thumbs up button, and we will see you guys really soon. I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight. We are at 10:48 Tuesday night, and I'm going to get this posted. I'm going to get it edited and posted for you guys so you can get this part of everything done. So I know some of you work regular daytime jobs, and fortunately I don't have to. This is my job. Let's see. Yeah, so, you know, that way you guys can kind of follow along at your own pace. And I'm going to try to get, we're going to get that video done Friday. Yeah, okay. So I'm rambling. Sorry, guys. I'm kind of in the mojo. I want to get these finished. And subscribe, thumbs up, and we will see you all really soon. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.